Welcome to Highly Sensitive, Happily Married, the podcast that teaches you to not only have an easier marriage as a sensitive woman, but to have one that feels more amazing by the day. Where you'll hear relatable stories, love advice that works, and coaching on how to have a marriage where feeling upset and disconnected is a thing of the past, and where instead a sense of loving connection and even fun and lightness is the norm. I'm Hannah Brooks, highly sensitive person, love expert, and marriage coach, and I'm so happy to be on this journey with you. My dear ones, some of you are just tired, so tired, but you don't slow down, or you don't slow down enough. Am I right? You have kids who need you, jobs that need you, or just an inner voice that tells you that you just need to keep pushing through, to keep going. But you're tired. You know you are. And that's you if you feel like you feel burdened a lot, or you feel resentful a lot, or you feel overwhelmed frequently, or you feel more irritable than normal. If you feel like a lot of stress or exhaustion, you are likely deficient in spaciousness in your life, alone time, or just pure and simple rest. And you need to rest, to stop giving so much of yourself, to stop overdoing for everyone else, and just rest, at least for a little bit, at least for a few days more than you normally do. And most likely, even better than that, in strategic and bigger ways, in an ongoing way. Because not only is not resting enough for your highly sensitive system physically depleting, i.e., it will eventually make you sick with things like autoimmune illness, which are quite high in highly sensitive people, but not resting enough for the needs of your sensitive system also leads to ongoing exhaustion, which creates resentment and this ongoing sense of burden inside of yourself, and ultimately disconnection in your relationship. So I really wanted to talk about this today because this is a relationship podcast and it's for highly sensitive people especially. And so this is a really important issue that might not get addressed in other relationship podcasts and must be looked at when we are talking about improving relationships as highly sensitive people. Like, it's not something we can just brush off to the side. It's really at the heart of what makes our relationships great as highly sensitive people, is being well in ourself, right? You've probably picked up on that from this podcast if you've been listening. Like, a huge amount of what I'm saying can be boiled down to you need to be really well in yourself to have a great relationship. And then you're going to have one of the best relationships, because that's what HSPs are amazing at, when we are well in ourself. And a piece of that is being rested. Now, for non-sensitive people, this isn't as important, although it is important. But many highly sensitive people notice that, unlike themselves, other people, non-HSP people, can become tired or stressed or even overwhelmed with life, but they're able to function decently and sort of process and move through their lives okay. Like, I don't think anyone thrives when they're not rested and they're stressed and overwhelmed, right? But because you are sensitive, it's even more problematic when you're stressed and exhausted, right? So recognizing this is simply essential for your emotional health and your physical health, that you do need more sleep, more spaciousness, more downtime to be well. And why is this, you might wonder? So I do want to address that. And it's simply because our extra sensitive brains and nervous systems absorb tons of information and process it extra deeply and extensively as compared to non-highly sensitive people. And so our systems get easily overloaded, overwhelmed. So you can really think about this as your brain and your nervous system kind of have to work overtime right? It's like us sensitive folks are out there working overtime as compared to non-sensitive folks who are just working, the regular work week. And to recharge, we need more downtime. We need downtime to process it all. And to use a different metaphor, it's kind of like, just like your belly needs time to process, to digest food, so does your nervous system and sort of body, mind, heart system need downtime to digest your day, right? To digest all the information that you're constantly taking in. Now, of course, sleep is not the only way to process all that information, but it is a very important way. And getting enough of it is how we keep our health and how we keep our sanity, and part of how we keep our, emotional wellness and our connection in our marriage alive. Because without enough of it, any person is going to be cranky, unskillful, unproductive. But for highly sensitive people, without enough of it, it can really make our lives and our relationships almost unbearable. I distinctly remember when I was a kid how we'd have slumber parties with my best friends, right? Or there'd be like a slumber party or even just a regular sleepover, and I would be a wreck the next day. My friends, on the other hand, seemed to be okay for the most part. And this was one of the first things that when I learned about the fact of highly sensitive people and I was kind of looking back at my life to be like, am I a highly sensitive person? This was one of the pieces that stood out, was like, as compared to my friends, I could not handle not getting enough sleep. And I also could not handle staying in the mall for a long time or hardly at all. My system couldn't handle it. It was too much, right? And back then I thought something was weird or wrong with me, but really it was just a sign that my sensitive system was on overload and needed more decompression, whether that was in the form of sleep, which often it was, but other times it was just less stimulation, more quiet alone time, right? Or ultimately and beautifully nervous system work. I do want to make sure I reiterate what I've just said, which is that sleep is not the only way to rest or to sort of digest all that sensory overload that we have as humans, as HSP humans. And in fact, there are many ways to guide your nervous system into optimal states that will make you feel optimally. And we will talk a little bit more about this in a few minutes. But the main point here is that honoring your need for rest is so vital for you as a sensitive person. And that will make a difference in your marriage. So one client comes to mind as an example of this. She was really not taking great care of herself. And partly this was because, having little kids and a career and all the things that so many of us have. She was really busy and committed to doing well at all of those things, to the point where she wasn't resting enough. She wasn't taking space in her life for herself in any way. She wasn't doing any self-care. And it really impacted her super negatively. She didn't feel good in herself, but she also wasn't showing up as herself ultimately, as that essential, loving, beautiful, deep-hearted self person that she is, because she was so bogged down and exhausted and worn out and stressed. So this was when she first came to me. And as we coached together, of course, I helped her give herself more permission to take care of herself better, to rest more. And of course, this alone, regardless of the other work we did, made it so much easier for her to show up with love and kindness with her husband, because she started to feel so much better, right? And as she showed up better with her husband, he in turn started showing up with more empathy and love for her as well. And this is classic. And it was kind of interesting to notice, because we were working together over a period of several months, and she'd come back on a call every once in a while and be quite in a not as great of a state and feeling really negative again and talking about hard things that had happened. And I'd always point her back to, okay, well, let's look at how much you were resting and how much you were taking care of yourself over these last couple of weeks. And it would always be that she had been neglecting that again, right? She'd fallen back into the old pattern of not giving herself the space and the rest and the care that she needed. And of course, coaching with me over time, she was able to really strengthen that new pattern of making time to do this for herself and really taking care of herself and resting more. And it was part of why she was able to start consistently showing up to calls, feeling great and being so proud of herself and being so happy with her husband and their relationship. So she's just an example. I too have had this experience in my own marriage, and I've seen it with other clients, of course. In fact, to the point where for me, when I start having a harder time or being more grumpy or negative in my relationship, or even starting to feel like my husband isn't there for me so much, listen to the last episode as a case in point. I have made it I've started to turn directly to look at whether or not I'm taking care of myself enough, whether I'm getting enough sleep as the first place, whether I'm supporting my nervous system, my extra sensitive reactive nervous system that we all have as highly sensitive people. Like, am I taking care of that? And oftentimes the answer is no. That's the first thing that we need to look at when we're having a hard time in our marriage or in general in life. So unfortunately, it does, to honor this sort of higher need for rest does mean we need to make lifestyle changes. We can't necessarily live the same kinds of life as someone who doesn't have this high need for rest and space. And I said, unfortunately, but I honestly think this can be a true gift because it gives us a better quality of life in general, even than non-HSPs, when we honor it. But it does mean doing something different than you've been doing with the time that you have in a day or a week. So getting more rest can be as simple as taking a half an hour nap every day or a few days a week, or simply, carving out several minutes here and there to simply rest, or going to bed a half an hour earlier every day, or sleeping just a little bit later each day. You've heard me, if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you'll know my husband and I used to get up pretty early and do yoga together and meditation. And that was amazing while it lasted. And it was a couple years that we did that. But then I was realizing I had a sleep deficit. And so I started to explore, well, what if I sleep for a while and prioritize that over doing meditation and yoga early. And that's been wonderful. So I've been getting a little more sleep in the morning. And that's been actually really powerful for me. Other ways you can get more rest in your day or week is taking a couple hours off just to simply be, to chill, to rest in solitude. That could be alone in nature, or you could be at home in a nice space with soft music, right? So you can also think of getting more rest as getting a rest from taking in stimulation, like a rest from social media, a rest from noise, a rest from light. So dimming lights, or many highly sensitive people I know enjoy putting on like noise canceling headphones, or even white noise or pink noise or green noise. You should check those out if you don't know what those are. I think people like HSPs tend to like the pink noise, and I've heard the green noise. I actually really like the green noise. It's really nice. So this can help lead to rest and restoration and relaxation. So I don't want to tell you exactly what that rest should look like. The question really is, what feels like resting to you? So this is your permission and your encouragement to go do that, to go integrate more of that into your life, starting today. Now, I need to address this part because this is going to come up for many of you or all of you. I know that it's not easy to allow ourselves to rest more in our modern lives, especially as women who are these days like kind of pushed from our society to be all things to everyone, to be super mom or superwoman. Yeah. So if you find yourself, when you think about taking more time to rest, if you find yourself feeling guilty or bad for carving out that time, then you're forgetting something vital, and you need to hear this. Taking care of your sensitive self is taking care of your loved ones. And it's taking care of your relationship. And it's even taking care of like all that you do in your life. And of course, it's taking care of yourself, which is the whole point here. But it's more than just taking care of you. It's not selfish, it's generous. And if you can't take care of yourself in this basic essential way, you could even think about it as taking from your loved ones the best of you and taking from them your big loving heart, because it won't be as available. So it is not selfish to take care of you in this way. It is generous to those around you, and of course, amazing for you as well. So to allow yourself to rest more, most of us in our modern world are going to need to shift our thinking out of sort of this type A thinking, which again, our society is dominated by, which really means breaking the thinking that, like the thinking patterns that say going is somehow better or more productive or makes you more worthy. A lot of us have that belief. It doesn't make you more worthy. It doesn't make you better, and it doesn't make you more productive. And there's research behind this that actually says and shows that we are more productive when we are rested and we take time for ourselves. So the go mentality often just erodes the things we care most about in life, like our creativity, our health, our connectedness, and our intimacy with our loved ones. So when you're tempted to just keep going, remember the truth that to honor our bodies and brains' need for rest, to honor our need for a time of no stimulation or action, that's what actually makes us thrive as highly sensitive people. This makes you more productive, more able to contribute to your family and your marriage and the world. So again, this is your permission slip to add in more rest to your life, your daily life, your weekly life. But what I really want to challenge you to do right now or this week is to carve out an especially relaxing few days for yourself this week, or maybe next week if you have to wait. Like over this weekend and into the beginning of next week, for example. I invite you to modify your plans if you have to. And if you have work, I challenge you to find ways to add rest in, right? If you can't take a little extra time off, which I'd love to invite you to try to do, if you can't do that, then find ways around the edges of your work life to add rest in. Maybe it's on your 15-minute morning work break or lunch break or both. Maybe it's going to bed, like I said, a little bit early, 15 minutes, an hour. You might be really surprised at how much better you feel if you just focus for a few days on adding more rest to your day. You're going to feel better, at least temporarily. So again, this is your permission to rest extra. Now, you might have just caught that I said temporary, and that's because resting for a few days extra isn't the answer to staying well for the long term, okay? And rest in and of itself is not the full answer either, at least not with the modern lifestyles that most of us live. Rest is key, of course, but getting decent rest doesn't make up for a chronically dysregulated nervous system, as so many of us highly sensitive people have. We can get plenty of rest and still be chronically stressed, anxious, or dysregulated, which is frustrating, but very true. In fact, when your system is stuck in fight, flight, or freeze, or goes there a lot, again, as it does for many sensitive people, you can't rest well. Like you might find yourself sleepless or waking up a lot at night with racing thoughts. Does that sound familiar? And so then the resting that you do isn't actually benefiting you nearly as much as it could, which is one reason when you do seem to get enough sleep, you might not feel as nourished by it or feel sluggish in the morning. Or when you rest, you're actually, like I said, just thinking. So if that's happening for you, or if you just know you could use more than rest to feel better in your life, if you suspect or know that your nervous system is not as regulated as it could be, please know that we address this on an individual and personalized level when you coach with me. We address it from various angles, as well as give you everything you need to make your marriage way more loving, way more connected, way more supportive, and way more joyful than it is right now. So to learn more about coaching with me and to get started, go to the link in the show notes. I'll put the direct link there, or you can head over to www.lifeisworthloving.com and you'll see a tab that says work with me. You can click on that. So go do that now. And until we talk again, rest up and be oh so well, my friend.